Hello, everyone. We are excited to use some of our alumni tonight. We're going to kick off our Q2 roundtable and really talk about all of the different topics and some of the insights that some of our alumni can give us. And then we have a treat at the end with David talking about his black and white gallery exhibition that's coming up in June as well. And that just happens to be our topic for July. So we'll get a little sneak peek for the Q3 topics. So I'm very excited to have some of our alumni with us tonight. Here we are. We have a roundtable that exists for April, which is the architecture topic, and that's an open archive. And Alan Roberts is going to talk to us about that. May is the long exposure topic. It's a monthly challenge, so it'll be taken in the month of May, and David Biggis is going to share his thoughts on that. In June, our quarterly quest, so it can be taken anytime in the second quarter, is flying high, and we've asked our bird expert, Sarah Sumner, to speak on that topic for us. And then finally, we're going to have the sneak peek of July, as I just mentioned, with David Downs. So let's get started. Alan, we're going to talk to you first. Now, I had to pick you for the subject of architecture because you are an architect, and that's been your life's purpose and mission in terms of a career. And now it's also something that you have mixed with your love for photography. So tell me a little bit about your work as an architect. What has that been like for you?
Well, I have really enjoyed it. It's, it's not easy. And there was quite a bit of competition, 6 people per place to get in. I graduated in 1982, so long time ago. But I've designed, I would say in Texas, excuse me, probably over about $100 million worth of work scattered all over Northeast Texas, to even as far south as Alvarado, south of Fort Worth. I've worked on a variety of projects. I don't really do residential. Excuse me. I became an owner in one of the biggest firms in Northeast Texas. Wow, back in about 2004. But I've designed schools, banks, dentist surgeries, little strip shopping centers, a whole variety of different buildings. And what I enjoy, like I've designed many schools, every single school is different. And what I really enjoy about the career is that I'm a pretty artistic, creative person, but I'm also very technically inclined. I'm analytical, logical. I was good at science, math, geography, even biology. And architecture, for me, combined all of those skills. And photography especially. My parents gave me my first camera in about 1968, when I was about 10. And I've just loved photography ever since. In fact, somewhere I found at an old store here in town, a used camera of the type, a little plastic Diana. And I've loved photography since I was a kid. And when I started architecture, my first year, we found out we needed a camera. Now, I didn't own a decent camera. I had borrowed my grandmother's Instamatic camera the year before, when I was doing my military service in the Rhodesian Army Infantry. So it was like, oh boy, I've got to now actually buy a camera. And I mean, I had to save up for it. My parents weren't wealthy and were struggling. We moved to South Africa. They left Rhodesia with next to $1,000 cash. That was it. That's how we left the country, with our old furniture, our old car, and our clothing and stuff like that. So I saved up and I bought my first 35mm camera, an Olympus Trip 35. And it felt heavy. And I was like, wow, this is a real camera. It's not a plastic camera like I had. But I soon found that I needed interchangeable lenses. Mm-hmm. And I just loved the Olympus, and back in the day it was Minolta, Pentax. The rich kids had Nikons. And I saw an Olympus OM1 in 1978 in the local camera store, and I fell in love with it at first sight. It just felt perfect in my hands. I bought it. So as a student, we used photography regularly, photographing the site. We had to do site visits, going out, looking at construction, photographing that. So I loved that. And then when I started work after graduating, I also took more journalistic type record photographs of our projects, and then personal, more artistic photographs of family, friends, sites where I was, scenic shots, stuff like that. And basically I've used photography and what I love about photography is the same thing I love about architecture. You have to be technically savvy. You have to understand the technology, but you also have to be creative. And it's a sort of melding of those two left and right sides of my brain, which I seem to be fairly decent at both. So architecture was a natural career that I've loved. A few days I've hated it, but most Monday mornings I woke up looking forward to going to work. Photography, the same. I love the way it combines technology, tech savviness, a lot of knowledge and skill, and a lot of creativity.
I love that. I've always said that photography is art and science, and a lot of our careers are that balance between art and science as well. And I can see where the intersection lies in for you. So I want to show, while we're talking a little bit, I'm going to show a few of your images, and I started off with this one because when you sent it to me, I just loved this, the contrast of it, the perspective of it, etc. And I'm just curious, where is this image?
This is down in Houston. Here I was at the Texas Society of Architects convention. Well, I take a camera just in case. And
absolutely,
we walking around town. We went on an amazing tour explaining to us about building in Houston. For example, if you look up there, those tall buildings are actually floating on the earth. Houston has very bad soil around the city. So what they explained to us was they had to, like a ship, they have to dig a basement deep enough that displacement of the soil will provide an upthrust that will support those buildings.
Wow.
And that sort of thing. And a lot of people forget to look up. And we were walking through this courtyard, and I looked up, and with it framed with that circle, and that would be like one of the typical compositions for architectural photography is a one-point perspective. So that too, to me, that's your perfect like one-point perspective, disappearing, framed with a circle. And I just had to stop and photograph it while we were on this architectural walk around downtown Houston.
Well, it's great. So obviously our next month is April, and it is architecture. So when you think about all of your alumni friends, including me, wanting to consider what to take, because they can take an image they've already shot.
Yes.
Anytime, it's open archive, or they can go out and take a fresh new image anytime until the end of April 30th. What are some of the things that you would encourage them to consider as they take these images?
Well, there's when you first think, okay, I'm going to go into architectural photography, there are your initial division point, which I think will be on the second. The first point would be, okay, you're shooting it for an architect or a contractor or a building owner, and you're doing it for promotion.
Okay.
So they want nice, clean, good shots that show off the building. They don't want more artsy kind of types of photography, because you might look at it as a like me, I take a photograph and I think, man, that's beautiful. But the client might look at it and think, what the heck is that? So like the previous shot, like this shot you're looking at now, that's the Komatsu headquarters I photographed in Longview. That, for example, if doing it for a client here, building contractor, where they want to show off the building, that's your classic elevational shot, straight on elevation, boom, this is what it looks like. Now, this project was nice because here the contractor asked me and said, look, we'd like you to do the standard architectural photography shots, But since it's such a nice building, we'd also, as they put it, they said to me, we'd like you to just use your imagination and take some artsy shots for us, including some close-ups of details. So the
Nice.
shot you had at the beginning, that stainless steel handrail,
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
was a close-up I took of this building inside.
Okay.
I
I've got
think
it.
when the talk started or somewhere you had.
Yes, I've got it again right
Yes,
there.
that one. So they also asked me, can you get some close-up detail shots? So here, for example, I think I used my 85mm lens here and in effect took a portrait of the stainless steel handrail. Because now, the other thing with architectural photography, it's kind of like all aspects of photography in a way, like bird photography, whatever. You need to know your subject to a point. Many years ago in my firm, we hired a professional photographer to photograph one of our projects 25 years ago. And I went out with him because I hadn't done professional architectural photography. I just taken shots for us, and I took my 5-megapixel Olympus sort of high-end point and shoot with a built-in zoom. He had this fancy camera that back then, these DSLRs were like $20,000 for a body or whatever. He took hundreds of shots. But when we got them, we realized he really had no clue how to shoot a building. So we actually used most of my shots that I took with my 5-megapixel Olympus. It could have taken it with any camera, but I just happened to have that little 5-megapixel Olympus. And from then on, I did all of our photography. So
Nice.
like here, these handrails are very expensive. So I wanted a close-up shot to show these high-end details, to show the shiny stainless steel and the bolts and the nuts and how it fits together, because that's an extremely expensive handrail. But for our people going to shoot photography, then I think for for this month or the architecture month, it would be more an artsy shot, as in looking for, like, you're not doing what you could do just a plain elevational shot of a very nice looking building. And if you do that, you wouldn't want it in a super wide angle fisheye lens that you get so close that everything looks wildly distorted. Unless there's some striking building and some weird angle that if you got down low with a fisheye and accentuated the perspective, it could make a very artistic type of shot. But so the first point is more standard architectural shots that show the building as it is, typical elevational shots, like corner angle shots, and a few interior shots. The second, the other jumping off point is the artistic side, where you are doing it purely as a work of art, as if you're photographing, say, a piece of sculpture or a landscape, and you're looking for perspectives, leading lines, layering, materials, light and shadow, and like, are you doing it in monochrome or color? So you can, and a lot of people with architecture, they think, okay, shoot the whole building. No, the architecture, like here, it's a detail. I think it was the next shot you had that was inside a church down in Houston as well. The black and where was it? A little bit further. It was that monochrome interior there, that one. So there too, this was inside a whole church that had been renovated. And so I took a few shots of the whole interior, but this too, for architecture, like a lot of people with landscape, when I first started shooting landscape, I've got to have a wide angle lens, wide, 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 wide. And it took me a year or 2 or 3 before I figured out, hang on, landscape is not all wide angle. Architecture, the same, closer shots of details. And I've been to workshops with, I think, 3 sort of famous or well-known architectural photographers. And one of the tips he gave is, he said, you want to photograph an image that draws your eye into the image, that makes you want to look around and explore it. And to me, this one does that for me. The perspective kind of pulls me in, and then I'm looking at the details and the roof framing and the deck on the roof and the wood and the pipes of the organ and the stuff. So there's a lot there that for me draws me in and holds my interest. So detail shots can be just as effective for architecture. I would say the only thing I would say is if you go for a detail shot, like using a zoom lens or telephoto, you wouldn't want a shot that you look at it and think, what is that? Like say it could be a part on a boat or a car. You need enough context that you realize, oh, this is architecture. It's part of a building, and look at this beautiful texture and whatever it might be.
Very good. Thank you. I've got another shot that's coming up and first of all, on this one, I loved how you said you took a portrait of the rails, because you don't think about portraits of buildings or building details. So that was a nice perspective for me to hear. This and your next one that'll overlay on top of this is more what I would call ancient architecture or historical. Tell us a little bit about that as an opportunity.
I was up in Boise, Idaho, and again, I always carry my camera. And a friend of mine and his wife lived there. We were at college together here in the US, and invited me up to come and visit him and his wife and children. And he said he'll take me for a drive downtown just to see that, because I'd never been to Boise, Idaho. All I really knew about Idaho was, I think, some potatoes come from there. So I'd never been to Idaho. So it was great. And we walked downtown, and lo and behold, this man was standing on the front steps, and he said, "Hello, Governor, how are you?" And I was like, "What?" It turned out it was the governor of Idaho was standing there. We met him and chatted to him, and then went in. Daryl wanted to let me see the dome because he knew being friends, he knew, of course, I was an architect and interested in buildings too. And we walked in, and this dome was just domes. If you're looking for an architectural shot too, they can make stunning shots. You can get right under them, so you're completely symmetrical. Mm-hmm. Or if you move off to the side and shoot the dome, that the dome becomes almost ellipses. It almost plays tricks on your eyes. It's amazing. Or like this, I used my zoom lens because I thought the detail and everything looked so wonderful. And kind of focusing on that column that's supporting the dome and the layering around it. So to me, that's not something, I guess a contractor, might use that, but that's not the sort of thing you'd use in a promotion, because some clients, or if they're showing off to say, this is the sort of work we do, they'd be like, yeah, okay. Whereas this to me is more of an artsy kind of architectural shot that might look nice as a print on a wall and stuff like that.
Very good. And then this final shot is along the same lines. Was it taken at the same place or a different place?
No, that was in Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
There's a war museum there that it's got one of the most moving sculptures in it I have ever seen. But outside, the portico looks like this. And as I came out, my cousins had taken me downtown to see it. And just the light, the columns, the texture of the ceiling, and I zoomed in a little too. And then it was a little bit on the left and right, but I cropped the left because I just wanted to get just this, to me, the light, the texture and everything. I just think it's beautiful. Yeah, so that too is a shot as an artistic type shot, and compressing it a little with a telephoto as opposed to standing there with a wide angle and trying to get the whole thing in. I just think it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's not black and white, yet it's monochromatic.
And those were the actual colors too. It was this kind of sandstone. And that's what I liked about it too, is that that's actual color, but it just looked fantastic. So another example of where a piece of the architecture works as opposed to getting the whole building. Very good.
Thank you, Alan. Now we have very high expectations for you to submit a very good architectural image in April.
Well, thanks for putting me under pressure. I appreciate it.
No problem. No problem. Really do appreciate it. So let's move on to our May topic. And May is long exposure. This is a monthly challenge. And so that means we got to take it in the month of May. Now, David, we know that you love astrophotography, and we know that you love photography in general. But when you look at the topic of long exposures, what do you immediately think of that could kickstart some of our thought process for May?
Yeah. So again, for me, a lot of it is I like to do night photography. So the star trails are a big thing of what I do. But I realize not everybody can do that. That's hard to do. So the basic, when I hear the term long exposure, I start to think about waterfalls and things like that. Um, Perfect one right there. So you can use a long exposure to do waterfalls, to smooth out the water. I also think a lot about fireworks doing long exposure. Allows you to grab a couple of, bursts at one time in one frame, and it'll add a lot to your composition. Um, Lightning. If you're out in the storms and you see some storms coming in, you can set your camera up, do a long exposure, and capture a bunch of maybe lightning bolts. So there's lots of different things like that. Uh, Another one would be car trails. You see cars going by, you get the tail lights, you get the trails from the cars, either bus or trains and things like that. This one was actually when we were downtown at a Benton Downs workshop. Doing the downtown, it was one of the Dart rails going by. I think that was a 30-second exposure.
Very good. And that's the challenge. When we have a monthly challenge, you've got to take something in that May. So now in that month. So now we're looking at May. What are and if someone can't travel or can't find a night sky for star trails or something like that, what are some of the things that you would encourage us to look for or consider, like this shot that's on the screen?
Yeah. So best thing to do is try to maybe go down to downtown and look for some interesting foreground and background with maybe a small like downtown. Like I live in Plano. We have a Dart train that goes by, and you could maybe use that as in your foreground and just kind of make sure that you use the city behind as your background. You can also go to some of the local parks. They probably have some water fountains there. Some of them, if you can do it at night, will be colored. So you might be able to get some really neat compositions that way. Look for maybe a carnival or a fair that might be around town. Kind of thinking about this, I was thinking about Six Flags. Going to Six Flags and doing, long exposures of the Ferris wheel, the swinging chairs, maybe a roller coaster coming by. So you can do a couple of different things like that as well.
Didn't you submit like the Ferris wheel at Grandscape one time?
I
That would
did,
be an
yes.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
now
So there's some
remembered
things
that.
out there. Just try to find those.
Okay. Yeah, and there's some waterfall areas in some places that could
Right.
do it.
Yeah.
Okay,
Find
that's really
a
cool.
local park, maybe some of the lakes. If you go hiking a little bit, you might be able to find some interesting compositions. And they don't have to be big waterfalls; they can be small, little ones. When we were in, some of my best places that I like to do the waterfalls are North Carolina and Tennessee. And you get big ones, but you also get a lot of small ones where you get a little more intimate composition that still look great.
Okay, that's a good thought process because it's really hard to think of, again, knowing that in May you may not be able to travel, you need to find something around town or nearby. That really helps a lot to think about different kinds of compositions. And of course, we've already talked about astrophotography a little bit because that is one of your passions. And it does include longer exposures. Sometimes that could be what we're thinking of for May, but in most kinds can't. But I do want to take the opportunity on the astrophotography topic to give a little plug for what you're doing in July.
Yeah, so in July, Delane and I are leading a workshop for Milky Way photography, night photography, astrophotography. July 24th, 25th, and 26th, I believe. And it's at a Fort Griffin State Historical Site in Albany, which is about 3 hours from DFW. And in the workshop, we will be going over and teaching how to take Milky Way shots. We'll also do a lot of star trails as well, but we'll go over equipment, settings, how to find the Milky Way, when to see the Milky Way. And if you've never done night photography before, it is so much fun. I encourage you to get out and at least try it.
Very good. So, David, thinking about May one last time, not astrophotography, but what you've experienced. What's been one of your favorite locations or photographs that you've had that really did include that long exposure aspect?
Yeah. So again, Tennessee, North Carolina, Oregon, those are all great places. Most of the ones that I enjoy the most for long exposure that are not astrophotography are the kind of the smaller streams that you can, really smooth out the water, get the water flowing over the rocks, and it just looks really neat.
Okay, very good. Thanks for sharing all of that. Appreciate it so much.
Sure.
David is great to work with, and really enjoy having the opportunity to do that. So now we're going to switch to June, and the topic here is flying high. It is a quarterly quest, which means you can take it anytime in the second quarter from April 1st to June 30th. We asked Sarah Sumner to join us for this one. Obviously, when you're thinking about flying high, you immediately think of bird photography, and we've got some amazing bird photographers in our alumni group. But there are other things that could be for flying high as well that we'll talk about. But the reason we wanted Sarah to join us is because the first time I met her, which was at Fort Griffin last year, David said, "You got to meet Sarah. She's the bird whisperer, but she can find birds, hear birds, see birds that nobody can do," because he had been on the Caddo Lake workshop with her and was just amazed by her. So Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And you don't have to whisper, you can just talk.
Oh, okay.
So when and how did you develop your passion for birds and then photographing them?
Well, I'm still very new at all of this. I'm still learning a lot, but just a few years ago, the guy I was dating at the time, we went on a trip to Yellowstone and tried to take photos of wildlife like the bison and bears and all of that. And we had really, really old cameras. And when we got home, we saw the photos and we were like, this is not what we wanted to get when we went to Yellowstone. So we got new cameras and we're like, okay, there's no wildlife in Dallas, Texas. What's near us? There's birds. So we started like practicing with taking pictures of birds in our backyard and just getting better at that and learning that there's so many different species and there's like competitions and all that. So we got a little competitive and like got to learn all the different bird types and then getting better at just taking the photos. Honestly, like I'm very new and all that and learning how to wait for the good shot and the perfect angle with different birds, and different birds have different behaviors and habits and all of that. So learning those is really helpful as well.
Well, that's another reason why I wanted to have you on, is because you're not someone who has been doing this for years and years and years. And a lot of our alumni, we have been photographing for years, but we haven't photographed anything that was flying high per se very often. But it was so encouraging to watch you over the last year or so really, really get into, how can I make this better? How can I make this better? Sarah asks a lot of good questions and she listens and asks those questions. And so as a kind of newbie, not brand new, but a newbie to photography and to maybe particularly bird photography or not, landscape photography, what would you say to encourage others who are in the same position?
Yeah, just ask lots of questions, get all of the opportunities you can to learn and kind of get out there and practice as much as you can too. Like after I met you at the Fort Griffin workshop, I went on a really long road trip and saw lots of different things and got tons of opportunities for like wildlife and birds and landscape, and just trying to broaden my horizons and figuring out what is a really cool angle, what's not a really cool angle. And then kind of working on all of the back end stuff, the editing, and learning more from David and his workshops too about Lightroom Classic and Photoshop.
That's great. That's great. In fact, you've already attended one. You're about to attend another one this Saturday, aren't you?
Yep, that's right.
Good.
This Saturday.
That's awesome. That's great. So I'm going to stick with birds for just one more second. There are a couple of apps that help you identify the species of birds. And so tell me about some of those apps, or at least one of them, and then how has it helped you hear what I can't hear, which is a bird in the tree?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's an app called Merlin, which you kind of press a button, starts recording, and then it tells you what's around you, what's making those chirps, those tweets. And it's not like 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. I would say like 90-95% accurate. And then you get to use that app to help identify photos too. So like you take a picture, like, I don't know what this is, use the Merlin app to differentiate between different birds. And then there's also eBird, which is used by, I think, millions of people, and they submit checklists and where they are and what birds they see. So you could see all the birds that have been seen near you, like at any time, and you can click anywhere. I think it's in the US, maybe outside of it. But that's an incredible app too. And you can keep track of all the birds you've seen, look at the ones you haven't seen and go find them. It's really cool. But
Cool.
answer your other question, the Merlin app, it helps you kind of learn the different sounds too. Like you're like, oh, it says that's a cardinal. Okay, I know what a cardinal sound is like now too. And then it also tell you all the different sounds for like a call or a song or things like that, and where they typically are.
That's very good. That's really good to know. I think that's part of it. And now that today is officially the first day of spring, it's a good time to start using that.
Oh yeah. March through May is spring migration too. So all the little tiny warblers are starting to come through Texas. So I think some of them are in South Texas right now. They'll make their way to the Dallas area probably later next month, and then start making their way north too. So
well, look at that. We picked the right timing for a quarterly quest for flying high.
Yep.
So obviously, I wanted to show a few more of your photos. Okay, so what kind of bird is this?
That's a hummingbird. I'm trying to remember. I think it's a ruby-throated, but I might be wrong.
Okay, looks like it.
Hummingbirds always confuse me.
Yeah,
That's
beautiful shot here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was in Colorado, Grand Lake.
That's one of Barry's favorite places, Grand Lake. All right. So obviously birds are not the only thing that could qualify for flying high. It's just one of the more obvious choices. What would you think about if you couldn't shoot a bird during this time? What would you choose to photograph or consider thinking about?
I would actually want to go to like a hot air balloon festival or something and take photos of those. I know there's some in New Mexico. I think there's some here, maybe too. And I think I saw one of the slides like bees or insects, but I am not one that likes flying things that sting me, so I will not be doing insects.
Okay, all right. And butterflies.
Yes, I can do butterflies.
Okay, good. Well, Sarah, thank you for stepping up and telling us a little bit about this. I think you'll come in handy for any of those who are also considering our CATO workshops later this year, because those are really good to practice some of the skills.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So Sarah, here's the thing. We're out on the boat and there's 6 people that are very focused on trying to find birds and nobody's seeing a bird. And Sarah goes, well, there's one and there's one and there's one. I mean, how can you practice? How do you see birds that way? I mean, literally she'd say it's right there and everybody's got their long lenses and everything. And we don't see the bird. And she says, no, it's right there. I mean,
You
did you
you
have
get you
surgery on your eyes or something? Are you superhuman? I don't get it.
I'm lucky with really good eyesight, but no, you get like it's a lot of practice to get used to noticing small movements. Like I'm always looking in the trees, always looking at certain heights in the trees and any small movement. So like on windy days, like it's been windy in the last few days here, really hard to spot anything because everything's moving.
Yeah.
But with when on like a calm day, any movement, it's like, oh, okay, gotta look at that and see if that was a bird.
Oh, that's a good clue.
Yeah.
That's really good. So I've got
Thank you,
one
Sarah.
quick question for all three of you. And Sarah, since you were last up, I'm going to ask you first. But you've been an alumni, and all of you have been alumni for various lengths of time. Sarah, you're probably the newest one. But what have you learned or enjoyed about just getting engaged with the Benton Downs community and being an alumni?
I think just due to like honestly how small it is, that's what I really kind of thrive on, is because that's when you get more like individualized feedback too, which I really appreciate. And you're not, in such a huge group where you're kind of lost in the weeds. So I appreciate all like the one-on-one conversations, and I can reach out to any of you guys and you're going to immediately respond because I don't know, y'all are nice people.
We like you.
Yeah. But that's what I really enjoy about it, is just the tight-knit community and getting to know, having one-on-ones with really anybody in the group.
That's good. Thank you, Sarah. Alan, what about you?
Yeah, I enjoy that, like our local camera club too. Until I joined it, most of my photography was by myself, out in the bush somewhere, because none of my close personal friends were seriously interested in photography. So through our local club, through Benton Downs, you all have given me another whole group of friends who are interested in photography, that I'm friends with people that I met on my first workshop. And so I enjoy the friendship and learning from each other. The Facebook page where you could post stuff or comment, or if you ask a question, someone will answer it and say, oh, try this or try that. So mainly for me, the friendship, the camaraderie, and learning from each other. And I think as your workshop leaders are personable and friendly, and you don't feel embarrassed to ask a question and say, hey, what about this? So I think those are all aspects that I've enjoyed. And I hope this year it's been a bit difficult for me to get to the workshops with various things going on. But as time goes on, I'm hoping that I can attend, a few more workshops to make new friends, see you all again, because I look on you all as friends, and it's really great.
Good. We hope you can too. We want to see you back around pretty soon. And David, David Biggis, I saved you for last because you are probably one of the longer attended alumni, and now you're starting to also co-lead several workshops in the future. So what has it meant to you to be an alumni and as a part of this community?
It's pretty much the same thing that Sarah and Alan said, the friendships you make, the people you meet. I'm going to Big Bend in April, and Dwayne from Kansas City met on a workshop in Arkansas, the fall workshop. That's probably 4 years ago now. We still stay in touch, and he's going to join me out there with a friend. So
it's great.
You end up meeting friends, and you get, like, and Alan was saying, you find people who have similar interests who will go do the workshops with you, or just, even if it's not a workshop, just go out and shoot with you. So definitely the friendships and the camaraderie.
That's great. Well, thank you. Thank you all. I did want to give David Downs some time because of two things. The gallery show that he's got coming up in June, but also the tie to that with our July topic, which is black and white. It's called Just Black and White. It's an open archive deal. So I wanted to make sure that we made that connection, gave him the credit and the opportunity to share some of his images. But David, let's just start with your exhibit. Tell us why you're doing this and what it's all about.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the image and looking at all the banding on it and going, this was a terrible thing to send you. But
You
I
shouldn't.
didn't I didn't vet it very well. You just said I need black and white images, so I just exported them and didn't look at them. So um yeah, so the Eisman Center is a big performing arts hall, and anyone here in the area is probably familiar with it. But their second floor, mezzanine area is a gallery that the people who donated, and it's named after them, they wanted it to be used for that purpose. So every month they have a new show. And evidently, the person that is tasked with bringing artists in and stuff came to my show, which some of you came to in the Art Center, not this past December, but the one before. And they reached out to me shortly after that and said, "Hey, we'd love to have you come do a show." And I was kind of show exhausted at the moment. I said, "Well, not this year." So then they followed up with me again and said, "Hey, we'd love for you to come do a show." And this is all black and white, and it's partially and mainly kind of a warm up for me because, as most of you know, I've got a book out, a coffee table book. But the very first coffee table book I did almost was a black and white. I've just always loved black and white photography. I love what it can communicate to a viewer. I love the fact that you strip out the color and sometimes you see a different emotional um, impact from people that look at it. They talk about things that they wouldn't otherwise talk about, which I enjoy. So yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think I've determined I'm going to take some pieces there that it'll be the only print that's done. It'll be a numbered one of one
Mm,
print, and whoever buys it, uh, that print will go in the book, but it'll go in the book with their name on it as the owner. So
wow.
I'm thinking about doing something kind of unique that way. That's
Hmm.
that's a little different. So
Well,
um,
it's easy to remember when it is because it's 6/6 at 6. June
yeah, it
6th
is
at 6 p.m.
6/6 at 6. Yeah.
So if y'all forget,
So
just remember it's June 6th at 6.
yeah,
Don't go
hopefully,
back.
if you've got some time, come by and take a look and mainly just say hello. It'd be great to see you. This
We've
is
got
a
some of your,
buffalo from
yep.
Yellowstone, I believe. Yes, it was Yellowstone, and the actual raw image. This is one of those cases of where I almost feel like I should have put the raw image with it, but obviously I've blown out a bunch of stuff, and this is all about texture and detail, and the image actually ends probably about halfway between his horn and the right side, and then everything that's out there has been added on, and part of the way you can tell is if you look, it's kind of grainy on that end, on that right side, and I will tell you that's due to generative expand in Photoshop, which when you use that, be aware that it's not high resolution. Well, they've got a kind of a workaround for that now, but it's created a little bit of a band on the far right side, and some people wouldn't notice it, but that's immediately what I went and looked at. So, um, but I'm gonna do, I think, some more of this. I've got a couple other images that I've already
Mhm.
started working down that path on.
And then this one fits well with architecture and what Alan said.
Yep. I took that this past weekend in Austin, actually. And this is a quick edit. There's some haloing going on and a bunch of other stuff. I just converted it to black and white, increased the detail and the contrast, and I haven't really done any of my gradient work or anything else. Um, but there's definitely something here for me to work with on this. It's an intriguing shot.
Very good. And we've got another one that should be coming up. This
Yeah,
is
I took
intriguing.
this in New York City probably, I don't know, it's been 9 years ago, maybe something like that. And I haven't really messed with the edit much since I did it at the time. It's very crunchy. I mean, almost everything's got, speckles in it. but I really I did that on purpose, and that's why I didn't bother to try to re-edit it. I wanted it to be almost more of a graphic image than a
Mhm.
photograph. The
Mhm.
sky is actually a replacement sky. I used render clouds in Photoshop and then added a diagonal motion blur to it as a background to it, because at the time that was what I was trying to create. But you know, this is not something I might go in and re-edit this at some point. I think it's kind of interesting. I love the way the light pole on the left with the one-way sign on it or something looks as tall as the buildings, when of course it's much, much shorter. That's the new World Trade Center tower there at the bottom right.
Very good. Very good. And we've got one more image, which, if not, I'm not mistaken, this was in your book.
It's the cover of my book, actually, but it's
That's
in
what I thought.
color. And
Mhm.
but I think this carries just as much emotional impact in black and white, maybe more than the color version. But it felt wrong, even though the book has some black and white images inside it. It felt wrong to put a black and white image on the cover of it because it did contain mainly color photos. But this is an image that I was there, and I think I hung out for a couple of hours, like after midnight, waiting for there to be one person in this hallway that I could capture. I knew what I wanted. I sat up there. I kept waiting on security or somebody to come say, what are you doing here?" And they all left me alone. And I waited, and eventually I got this one person walking down the hallway. And I always kind of wondered, who they were, where were they headed? Were they headed home? Were they headed to work? Were they headed somewhere else? They didn't have, suitcase or anything with them. And it was just kind of interesting. I mean, when you've stood there long enough and seen all these people go by, and then there's only one person, the impact of having one person in that space versus a bunch of others was just dramatically different. And I felt a connection with them. We were sharing a
Mhm.
moment alone
Mhm.
in a space like that, and that's not something that happens much. So,
Yeah, that's a high impact storytelling aspect of it, which is one of the things that, as judges, you and Barry always look for. So I'd like to hear from you and Barry both in terms of, if you were looking for a black and white image, and you're going to be judging the competition in July after the end of July, what are some of the suggestions you have to really make a dynamic black and white image that would be a really good scoring one?
Barry, do you want to go first? Or you want me
Oh,
to go?
sure. Yeah, no, I think the beauty of black and white is simplicity. And if it's an overly complex image, you can lose some of the power of the black and white, the monochromatic look. So if it's got a lot of visual texture to it, a lot of things going on, sometimes that's too busy, in my opinion, for a black and white. But something like the picture being displayed here, where repeating columns going off to the back, there's just not a lot to confuse the eye, is a beautiful example of a good black and white.
Thank you, Barry.
I would say use the full dynamic range. It's okay to block out your blacks. It's okay to blow out your whites. You don't want to do a lot of it because it will become more graphic design than photograph, and that is something that'll still be a challenge. This is a photography contest or competition versus a graphic design. So you may edit it one way for you because you love the contrast, but I would still say you need to retain those photographic elements that make it, it's clear that it's a photograph. It's really, if you're relatively new to black and white photography, um, you're going to do like what I did with that one of New York. You're going to get really crunchy with it. A lot of texture, a lot of detail because it looks cool. But a better black and white image would be one like this, where you have some areas of texture. If you look at those beams that are closer to the, at the top that are closer to the viewer, you can see some texture in there. But mostly it's a lot of flat stuff, but you've got nice sharp lines in the tile. So I would just caution you about that. And your midtones are really important in black and white. If you're going to have them there, make sure your transitions from your grays to the blacks or the grays to the whites, that they are nice and smooth and not too dramatic. If you get them too dramatic, it'll increases the chance that it'll look very, uh, very crunchy is the word I'm going to use. But you need nice, smooth transitions if you have a lot of midtones in the image.
Okay, very
And
good.
another thought, just to add something else, is when you're finished with the image, you've got it converted to black and white, and you think it looks nice. Do what some photographers call a border patrol. Look all around the edges of the image. If you've got something super white in the corners or on the edges, you might want to consider toning down or moving the crop to eliminate that, because in a black and white, if there's something bright white around something really dark, it's going to draw the viewer's attention. So do that border patrol, make sure you have the viewer focused on what you want as opposed to being drawn off to the sides.
Very good. That's an excellent addition.
2 more quick tips. Zoom way out so it's small on your screen, and that's a good way to see where you have bright areas right against the edge. And then the other is with it full screen, flip it upside down and look at it. So if you look at it from
Yeah,
different
that's great.
perspectives, certain things will jump out at you. If your vignette's too heavy, when you zoom out, it'll be obvious. You'll be like, wow, I've got a bright circle in the middle of black corners. And those are all little adjustment tips to take a look at so that something will kind of pop out at you. And then lastly, edit it the way you like it and then walk away from it. Come back the next day and look at it again.
Okay, very good. Very good tips. And we did talk about your gallery show, but do a quick plug for the fact that we're going to have another gallery show for our alumni at the end of the year, like we did last year, but maybe a little bit different or better. Thoughts?
Yeah, we'd like to include more people. We're going to have, I think, the entire space or more space than we had last time. And I think I want to give people, more flexibility. What do you want to enter? Um, we want to put together a show that's for the gallery that happens to be our images versus us saying, hey, can we have a piece of this wall? So start thinking about it, what you would like to put up in there. And yeah, really kind of looking forward to it. We'll do the same thing with showing our winners and everything else. But this is truly a gallery show. You just happen to know one of the gallery owners, so that guess what? You got an in. And we'll probably do more of a kind of a juried thing where, submit as many images as you want, and we'll tell you, well, this is how many you can get in and which ones. And, obviously for our monthly winners, that image you're free to enter. That's going to get in. You don't have to, but that's something that would obviously would go into the show. So.
Okay, thank you. We're going to wrap this up, and just a few last minute reminders. The competition for March is open right now. It's obviously negative space. It's due by the 2nd of April, and it is a quarterly quest, so it has to be taken in this first quarter. Our next live judging call is on the April 9th. The registration link is already on our Facebook alumni page, and in the email that was sent this past week to all of our alumni, it's also included there. We already talked about David's gallery, so don't forget about that. June 6th at 6 in Richardson. And then just a final reminder that workshop seats are still available for most of the workshops. We've already started looking at 2026, and we're not going to wait for one big announcement or open call. We're going to start putting out 2026 workshops as we have them. And that means that Caddo 2026 is already live, and we'll continue to let you know about new workshops as they happen. David or Barry, any last thoughts or comments?
None for me. Well done. Good job. Thanks for joining us for the roundtable. That's awesome.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Sarah, David, Alan, appreciate your expertise, you taking the time out of your day
Mhm.
to provide value to the rest of the group. I think the reason you're willing to do it is because you've already said it. You enjoy being part of Benton Downs. There's friends, there's people that are going to see this that are going to be happy to see your face, right? So anyway, we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you so much.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you,
Thank you.
David. Thank you, Barry.
Everybody have
Thanks
a good
to
evening.
everyone.
You too.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
evening.
Thanks,
Bye
Good
bye.
Delana.
night all.
Thank you, Delana.
You're
Thanks,
welcome.
Lena. Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.